From Zimmer Labs, and I am back to do just a follow-up video on Dave's Phoenix Props version 2 Kylo Ren Crossguard hilt. I did a pretty thorough video of this guy before, but there's a couple quick changes Dave wanted to make, so we've done those, and I wanted to do a quick video for him so he can check them out. Let's fire this guy up. Kill key is down underneath the pommel. It's a simple twist key.
You know what I've come for.
It's your sound effect to tell you it's on. Activation button, auxiliary button here. Got delayed activation, the top first, and the quillions obviously. So, the changes. First off, I wanted to make the side blade plugs easy to remove. And as you can see, these guys, well, they're hard to grab, but they're no longer as tight as they were. They slide in nicely, and you can just shake them out. So that's all set. They're a snug fit, but they're not so tight that you have to have tweezers or pliers or anything to grab them to pull them out. Next up, David wanted me to change the crystal chamber a bit. He was not terribly keen on the silver, the really bright polished silver color. Obviously, typically to remove this section of the hilt you have 3 screws, but just for the ease of this video I wanted to make it an easier process, so I just had the one installed. So now we've got a darkened pewter color going on in the crystal chamber. I also did similar effect on the steel bars to match that, so hopefully that works for you, Dave. Let me know what you think of that. This effect was achieved by sanding down the rhodium plate on the original crystal pieces, the chamber pieces that is, and then applying some gun blue as well as a really mild acid on the bars and the cage. It gives it like a dark bronze, grayish pewter color, and I think it looks pretty good. But that's the color that Dave wanted. I had originally thought to go with just an all silver or black or gray scheme so that it was consistent throughout, starting with the shiniest silver, going to the stainless steel, going to the iron here, just having no gold hints at all. But now that this is done, I do really like it. So Dave, let me know what you think. And next up, we have the second major change that I made was David was curious about accessing the SD and USB ports on the Teensysaber card. Those guys are right here. You can actually see the top of the micro USB port right here, and the SD card is right beneath that. Now, you can't get to those because of these covers, but the covers are very easy to take off. You have to remove this section here from the top portion of the hilt. There's one retaining screw, this guy right there, that holds this whole section in place. So if you loosen that screw, this part slides out, but here's the tricky part. You don't want to pull too hard because, as you can see, there's a whole lot of wires right there. So what I did was I added connectors here, here, and here. There's a set of 3 connectors. These 3 can all be unplugged so that this whole section comes off, allowing you to then put this on a bench, slide these steel pins right here out. So they slide out this way right along this groove. They can't slide down and out, which would be a better design, but they can't because the speaker is down here. So they would hit the speaker if they went that direction. So they have to go this way. So you can't take them out, obviously, if this is still inserted, because those steel rods would hit this aluminum section here. So this has to be removed in order to take these covers off. And if you're going to remove those, then you have to deal with wiring. And you don't want to have wiring getting pulled out or broken. So these 3 connectors are now easy removal, easy replug-in connectors. That being said, I don't recommend doing it any more than you absolutely have to, because these are still tricky to get plugged in, because when they're pushed in, the wires get in a certain configuration, and then when you slide this out, the elasticity of the wires, they want to bounce back inside here. So as soon as you unplug these, they're going to bounce back in there, and then you're going to have to take tweezers and pull them back down and plug them in. So it's not terribly hard to do, but nonetheless, this is something. Removing these panels and accessing the USB and SD card is not something that you want to do on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis. It's something you want to do pretty much as seldom as is absolutely necessary. There's no whole lot of reason to access them. The only reason you would want to is if you would want to change the sound fonts or change the programming for the lightsaber itself. If there is any sound font tweaks or programming changes that, Dave, you want to do, you can always just send this back to me and I can do it for you, because I certainly don't mind. You could send it back to me as many times as you like, and I will never complain about that. But if you want to do it yourself, this is as easy as I can make it for you, and I will obviously walk you through it over the phone or via email or text or Skype or whatever, just to give you step-by-step instructions on how to connect this guy up and change the programming or change the sound fonts. That's the next major change that we made. Now let's tighten this guy back up. There we go. Now this guy is locked in place again. And for your information, that is a metric 2.0 hex head screw right there. I will include one of those with this when I send it out, and this is, I believe, a 1.5. I will also include that for you. This is a 2.0 in here and here, which are the these are the 2 set screws for the blade. What else? That may be just about it, actually. There's one other thing I wanted to show you guys, but I'm not going to be able to because the way this red wire works. But with a tiny bit of work, this is an option. This section here, the electronics, the fake electronics portion of this hilt, this is actually a separate piece. When I first started working with this, I thought this was a solid piece, but this, as you can see, does move a bit in there. That's because it's threaded, so you can actually unscrew this section and just remove it. But this red wire right here is in the way of this unscrewing any further and is epoxied in to make it permanent, so I don't want to take that off just to show you guys this possible option. But what I'm trying to get at is it's possible. Not that the sound isn't already great. There are sound venting holes right where you can't see them, but all around the inside of this piece right here that's removable. So the sound does come out quite well from this hilt, but if it's not coming out as well as you wanted it to, you could unscrew and remove this portion, and the red pommel cap will still screw back on, And instead of seeing these fake electronics, what you would see in here in this section is this. And it actually looks pretty good because it's got a nice iron finish and then some hexagonal silver mesh also going on in there. So if you see this through the windows here instead of the fake electronics, it doesn't detract from the overall look, and it does actually get the sound a bit louder. Sorry, I keep doing that. But it's an option. So David, if you find that the Saber is not loud enough for you, that is an option to get, I'd say 25% more volume out of this guy, is simply unscrewing and removing this inner piece. What else to say about this guy? Anything I didn't say last time? Yeah, one thing I didn't say last time, I don't think, is that the power plant running this guy is a 2170 Samsung 5 amp hour battery, not a standard 18650. I went with a much bigger battery in here, which is important because of all the Neopixels going on. You've got your accents, you've got color cycles, you've got crystal chamber LEDs, you've got 2 quillions and your main blade. So when this guy is on, it is really, really sucking power and requiring a lot of amps, a lot of current to function the way it wants to and to really light everything up all at once. So I thought it made sense, rather than to go with an 18650 power plant in this guy, to give it a little bit more beef. And I think that's probably something that I'm going to try to do on all my Kylo Ren builds, because it's just, as long as it's something you can squeeze in there, it doesn't make sense to go with a smaller battery for this guy. This guy really needs the extra power. That's about it, I think. Put this guy back together. Oh, no, there's one other thing. Now this applies to the Phoenix Props version of this and not the Corbanth version of this. Like I said before, there are 3 screws, one here, and one here, that keep the 2 halves of the hilt attached. And that is probably my only real gripe with the design of this hilt, because if you have a crystal reveal, you want it to be something that's easy to reveal. You want it to be semi-effortless, something you can show off to people at a convention or whatever. If you just want to play with it yourself, you just want to be able to slide this guy off. But as it stands right now, you need a number 2 metric hex screwdriver handy, and you need to take these 3 screws off, and then you have to put them back on. And that's, you know, eventually you're gonna wear away the paint that's underneath them. You're gonna strip out the threads and the heads on these things if you're not incredibly careful. And it's just, you know, it's a hassle. It's a lot of work to access the inside of this guy. So ideally, what you'd want is a workaround solution, and the best that I can come up with is something that I've found called micro tough lock rivets. They are either nylon or plastic, but they are automotive commercial grade little tiny push rivets. And I think, I haven't got them in the mail yet, but they're coming. I've got a sample coming, and I think that they are going to be pretty much at the identical size of those screws. And what they do, the way they work, is you literally just push them in. Show you guys some pictures here. If you check out the screen, this is what I'm talking about. That's a circuit board just for scale, and these are the little push rivets. Here's a small fan, a push rivet again, and here's a blown up picture of basically the same thing. So the way it works is this section here is just a smooth round black top, which looks actually just like this, except there isn't any hole here. It's just going to be a smooth round black dome. And this portion goes inside the hilt, and then this portion pops down and the plunger goes in and spreads this part out, which, rather than having a screw go in and screw it tight to hold these sections in place, these little micro push rivets can go in there, and you just push them in, and that pops it and locks it in place. So if you replace these 3 screws with 3 of these guys, it'll be a simple matter of just taking your fingernail and popping them out. You pop all 3 of those out, and then this guy will slide right off. And that will completely alleviate the need to have a screwdriver handy to worry about unscrewing, to worry about stripping threads or stripping the hex area, to worry about, you won't have to worry about messing up the paint. This, I think, is probably the best solution. The other solution is simply to go without these 2. This is secure with just one. I wouldn't recommend doing that if you're going to be swinging it around or dueling or anything. But if you're just going to be wearing it on your belt, cosplay, or just putting it on display, you only need one. And if it's on display, you know, in a display stand in a cabinet, you could just go without those 3 screws completely. It wouldn't matter, because obviously you're not going to have to worry about things opening up on you because it's going to be sitting there on display. What else? There is one other thing I should mention too. The first video I did, if you guys remember, the top half of the hilt was in 2 sections, and those 2 sections were still loose, still separate. So I did lock them down, turning the top half of the hilt into just one piece. So now if you remove the bottom section, before this outer shroud here, this would have just slid right down. But what I did was I attached the outer section to the inner section, so now this is just one piece. And it's rugged, it's solid, it's not going anywhere. So this is a much more finished piece, and this section no longer gives you any difficulties, or you no longer have to worry about this piece sliding around or sliding down or being annoying. So that is also all done. And that truly is it. So thank you guys for watching. What else? Anything else? I feel like there's one other thing. David wanted me to show off the smooth swing effect a bit more, because I didn't really do that the first time through, so for you, David. Also, I did put a bunch of good force effects in here, so to get those to work, to happen, you just hold down the main hold down the main activation button for, I don't know, a second or so when it's already turned on. So as you can see, there's a few in there. It plays them randomly. It tends to go with the one that's numbered number 1 first and most often. But it does, the programming for the Teensysaber does try to make it completely random. It does seem to do number 1 more often than the other ones, but...
That lightsaber, it belongs to me. Come get it. The droid. Traitor!
So that's got, looks like 3 or 4. Next blade preset. It's got a couple different ones. Third blade preset.
You were so right. You were so right. Anything else? You were so right. Kill them all.
So that's just got a few quotes going on in it. This goes for all the sabers I build. I always try to put good force effect sounds, good quotes hidden in each blade preset, but I always forget to show them off when I do videos because it's just kind of the last thing that's in my mind. But that one's not quite that exciting.
You're still holding on!
Also, you'll notice when you do a force sound effect, the smooth swing effect still works, it's still in place.
I killed you. Killed the Jedi.
That way you can do it as you're dueling or playing around and it doesn't ruin the whole effect.
You're still holding on. Let go!
Alright, so I guess that's probably just about it. Let me show off the audio player real quick and then we'll call it a day. So to get the audio track to play, it's a simple matter of doing a long press on the activation button when the blade is not activated. So it's the same thing as getting a force effect, except the blade has to be off to do it. When the blade is on, you get force effects. Simple as that. For each blade, there is a different track. To get it to turn off again, you turn the blade off, then you do a long press one more time. Duel of the Fates seems to be appearing on a lot of different blades. Obviously that's because it's the best song, but... Okay, so before I send this out, I'm going to have to change that a tiny bit because there's a number of audio tracks on that guy, and there's only 2 that are getting played. But at any rate, I think that covers the rest of the stuff and all the changes that we did. David, this is your charging adapter. These are your side quillions, Neopixels inside. These are great. These are from Outer Rim Sabers on Etsy. Just the blades themselves. The only negative for these guys is that the tips of them, they're really sharp and fine and really detailed, but they're also incredibly fragile. So just be really careful. If you smack that tip, those are going to break right off. So just, you know, it is what it is. If the little tiny piece breaks off, you probably won't even notice anyways. If you do notice it, you can keep it and glue it back on, but just be careful. These are something that, you know, these side quillions are obviously not intended to be something you use if you're dueling. If you're dueling, you're not using these guys. These are for display. But they are a bit delicate on the very tips here, so be careful of that. That really is about it. So thank you guys, and I've got more videos to follow very shortly.